Boldwood presents How to Slay at Work, written by Sarah Bonner and read by Antonia Beamish and Gemma Lawrence. The moral right of the author has been asserted. This performance is owned by Boldwood. Part 1. Millie. Chapter 1. My boss is a stone-cold bitch. But please don't think I hate her. Far from it. I admire her. She is an icon. She slays. Freya Elwood Winter, Sales Director of Serendipity Cosmetics plc, goes through life not giving even one single fuck what people think of her. Just imagine how free she must feel to be so unshackled from propriety and the normal rules that govern our social contracts. Of course, I would rather she wasn't my boss. I'd rather I wasn't the person being summoned into her office at 7 a.m. before I've even been able to take a sip of my coffee or change out of the trainers I wear for my commute. She doesn't bother with any pleasantries. Samantha has quit. Oh, I reply, wondering if Freya will elaborate. She doesn't. We leave for Paris in a few hours. We, as in... She cuts me off with a stare and a sigh. You will obviously take over Samantha's workload. This conversation is undeniably a complete waste of her time. Right, I reply, trying to keep my tone neutral, as if this is a reasonable request from her and not an utter piss-take. I mean, it's an overnighter. What if I had plans for this evening? Plans that don't involve an impromptu trip to France. And don't get me started on the fact that I now need to learn the ins and outs of the deal with C'est Magnifique. I'll need to go home and get my passport. The look she gives me could turn a person to stone. Well, at least you can jog there, she says as her gaze sweeps down to my footwear. I message Sam on my way to the tube. I need to know what happened. Did she get fired? Or did she finally reach breaking point and tell Freya where to stick the job? If that was the way it happened, I wish I'd been there to witness. Sam doesn't reply. The flat is quiet as I let myself in. Lissa must still be asleep. The vat of cheap wine she drank last night still cradling her in its languid embrace. The place is a mess. Lissa's stuff strewn everywhere. There's even a pair of her tights hanging off the lamp in the living room. We're total opposites. I'm tidy and ordered. A neat freak, Lissa calls me. But she's an absolute slattern. We've lived together since we were teenagers, sharing a room at the home and then this flat, and I finally learned not to let it get to me. Plus, Lissa is currently temping for a fashion PR company, and having samples all over our communal space makes it much easier for me to borrow things. Like the fabulous Louboutin heels that are lying incongruously under the breakfast bar in the kitchen. They'll be perfect with the black LK Bennett dress that's been hanging in the hallway for almost a month. I scribble her a note on the fridge. She's notoriously dreadful at reading text messages or WhatsApp, but she's a creature of habit who needs a milky coffee every morning, so she always sees the little magnetic whiteboard. Then I carefully pack my little carry-on case, pluck my passport from its home in the small safe in my bedroom, and head back to the office. Lissa messages me, just as I'm rehearsing the final touches of the pitch I will give our Parisian clients. Ooh, look at you! International jet setter? Kiss kiss. Lissa has always had this thing about business travel. She thinks it's exciting and glamorous and a perk. A fucking perk! The next 24 hours will swing between absolute boredom and horrendous stress in luxurious settings that cannot be enjoyed. I will live in constant fear that I'll say something outlandishly offensive in my terrible French, or order something in a restaurant that is delivered to the table still alive and squirming. And all the while, under the watchful and ever-judgmental eye of Freya Elwood Winter. I've worked for Freya for almost 2 years as her bid analyst. Technically, I'm meant to write pitch packs for potential high-value clients and brand collaborators, but most of my time is spent as a glorified PA, running seemingly random errands for her while she makes vague promises about future opportunities if I prove myself. Sam was, I guess, seeing as she's quit, the bid manager, the one who accompanies Freya as she jet-sets all over the place. It might sound more senior, and it is, of course, but the reality is Sam took, a lot of meeting notes and spent, who the fuck knows, most of the rest of her time booking ridiculously specific hotel rooms and making all the travel arrangements. I guess I do both of these jobs now, and I guess there won't be a pay rise anytime soon. This will be dressed as an opportunity, and I'll take it, make some sycophantic noises about how I relish the challenge, and then bitch about it to Lissa later. Welcome to office life in the 21st century. At 12 minutes past 11, Freya suddenly appears at the door to her office and announces we're leaving in 5 minutes. I scramble into action mode. I call a town car, shut down my computer, gather my things, and run downstairs to ensure I'm ready and waiting at 16 minutes past. I watch the clock behind the receptionist as it ticks forward. 17 past, 18 past, 19 past. I need to pee. 3 more minutes pass. I could have nipped to the loo, but it wasn't worth the risk that the lift doors would open and she wouldn't find me waiting. I'll have to hold it, feeling as if I'm about to burst, until we arrive at St. Pancras. The uniformed town car driver pops his head into the reception area. Pick up for Millie Brooks? I stretch my face into an exaggerated grimace at him. He's driven us before, and he knows what my expression means. I'll wait in a car, he says with a huff. It's 29 minutes past before Freya steps out of the lift without even a sniff of an apology for saying 5 minutes when she meant 20. Are you coming, Camille? She asks as she strides past me. My name isn't Camille. Millie is short for Millicent. I was named after my grandmother, who began calling me Millie when I moved in with her to avoid the confusion of 2 Millicents. But I don't correct Freya. It's easier not to. And what is a name, anyway? I'm being facetious. Names are incredibly important. They define the very core of who we are. Millicent means brave strength, something I have had to learn the hard way. Freya technically means noblewoman, but it was also the name of my neighbour's aloof husky, who considered herself far above giving anyone any affection. She looked like a wolf and had the teeth to match. My boss couldn't have a more perfect moniker, in my opinion. Freya spends the first hour of our Eurostar journey quizzing me about the clients we're meeting this evening and the details of the proposal. I've had about 2 hours to get my head around the deal, but she can't help herself from nitpicking about the tiny little things I get wrong. They launched C'est Magnifique 4 years ago, not 3. It's the second largest youth beauty brand in France. It's pronounced Martin, not Martin. It's French. I find myself making more and more of these micro-errors, probably in direct correlation to the pressure on my bladder, as I still haven't been able to go to the toilet. Thankfully, lunch arrives, and Freya starts devouring her starter. I manage to excuse myself to wash my hands before I eat. You were a long time. I've almost finished eating, she says, as I slip back into my seat opposite her. She's already eaten her starter and half her main course. I was gone for less than 5 minutes, but she has this thing. I was going to call it a talent, but it seems a rather odd thing to celebrate like that, for being able to eat incredibly quickly, as if she's merely inhaling the food rather than eating it. I went on a date a few months ago with a guy who ate in the same way. He told me it was an old boarding school habit, but Lissa did some Google searching and discovered he'd spent 2 years in prison for identity theft. That'll be why he eats like that, she'd said, with an arched eyebrow and a self-righteous smirk. I told you he was trouble. He was hot as hell, though, and sometimes we all need a bit of bad boy in our lives. Almost as if she knows I'm thinking about her, my phone begins to beep as a stream of messages comes in. I like to consider what I'm going to say before I compose a single and well-formed message, Lissa, however, messages like her phone is directly plugged into her stream of consciousness, randomly pressing send at whim before she continues to type. I fumble with my phone, trying to put it on silent as I offer Freya an apologetic smile. But Freya stares back at me, finally putting down her knife and fork and crossing her arms. We might be eating, but you are still at work, Camille. Sorry, I say quickly, and slip the phone under my napkin so the offending item is out of sight. But I hate myself for apologising, and for buying into the whole corporate, all my time is work time bullshit. She's literally dragged me to Paris with zero notice, and now she's begrudging me having a friend send a few texts over lunch. It's not like I'm going to clock off at 5 p.m. The meeting with Saint Magnifique is over dinner and doesn't even begin till 8. It takes 20 minutes for the taxi to take us from Gare du Nord to the Marriott Champs-Élysées. It's been a long time since I was last in Paris, and I stare out of the window at the buildings with their stone facades and black wrought iron balconies. My grandmother brought me here once, I say as we pass the Palais Garnier, home to the Paris Opera. Although I slept through the performance, I think I was a bit young for opera. Freya doesn't even look up from her phone. That's nice, she says dismissively. I keep quiet for the rest of the journey, drinking in the sights and opening the window a crack to allow the scent of freshly baked bread and coffee to waft into the car from the plethora of street-side cafes. The May sun has warmed the pavement, bringing the city to life around me. We turn onto the Champs-Élysées, the Arc de Triomphe in the distance, and pull up in front of the Marriott. I remember Sam. Freya always called her Samantha, but she thought that made her sound like a Sex and the City character and always went by Sam to the rest of us, spending almost 2 hours on the phone last week, trying to wrangle a specific suite Freya wanted. You may have figured by now that my boss is rather exacting in her tastes. Sam never said if she resolved the issue, and I hadn't thought to ask. It was her problem after all, and I had plenty of my own to worry about at the time. I assume you sorted out the correct suite, Freya says, as she pulls up the handle of her roll-on case and heads towards the entrance, leaving me to pay the taxi driver. Right. Well, I guess Sam's problems are now my problems. I cross my fingers as I try to catch up with Freya. Somehow, Sam has pulled off the suite, and Freya almost breaks into a smile as the receptionist hands her the key. My room, of course, is not a suite. I'm in one of the cheaper rooms the hotel offers, which, even then, is so expensive it makes me feel a little queasy. I could pay my share of the rent for over a month with that kind of money, but I do have a tiny little balcony. At least I'll be able to sneak an illicit cigarette without having to come down to the street. We will meet at 7:30 in the atrium bar, Freya tells me, before heading to the bank of lifts up to the rooms. Then she stops and turns towards me, raising her voice to ensure I can hear her across the space. Make sure you look a little more put together for dinner. She waves the hand she is holding her room key in at me, motioning not to something specifically wrong with the way that I look, but that all of me needs some attention. I send a silent plea for strength to the sky, before trotting dutifully after her. As soon as I've closed the door of my room, I unzip my little case and pull out the bottle of wine I had stashed in there. Thank God for the Eurostar not having any liquid restrictions. It's warm, but warm Prosecco is better than no Prosecco. Plus, it isn't like I'm picky. I pop the cork and pour a generous measure into one of the little glasses wrapped in hotel-branded tissue paper from the bathroom. The door to the balcony slides open to reveal a space no larger than a yoga mat, the world's smallest table, and 2 chairs squeezed into the space. It's bourgeoisie and ridiculous, and an absolutely perfect place to watch the last vestiges of a spring afternoon with a glass of wine and a Marlborough. The smoke hits the back of my throat, and the head rush hits me like an old friend. I trap the involuntary groan behind my lips. I know old-school cigarettes aren't fashionable anymore, but my grandmother was never without a Marlborough, or even a brightly coloured Sobrani. And I find the smell comforting. It's the scent of home and a life that had almost made sense. I can see the Sacré-Cœur in the distance, and I step forward to lean over the balcony railings to look at the street below. Unfortunately, my room looks over the rear of the hotel, so there isn't much to see. Except a woman dressed all in black leggings, a black hoodie, slightly incongruous in the early May warmth, and black trainers. Is that? But of course it is. Her almost white blonde hair reflects the sun, even though her long bob is scraped back into a stubby ponytail. Freya pulls on a black baseball cap as she hurries down the alleyway, looking behind her as if to check she isn't being followed. What the actual fuck is she up to? Chapter 2. I smoke 4 Marlboros back to back as I wait to see when Freya returns, soothing my throat with another glass of Prosecco. Just as I'm grinding the last cigarette into the minuscule ashtray, I hear my phone beeping from inside the room. Shit, I didn't message Lissa back. She has a tendency to get pissy about these things, even though she so frequently ignores my texts, the queen of double standards. Now, I know I'm meant to have an army of friends and lovers and people who send me stupid gifs and memes and links to random Reddit threads about skateboarding dogs, but I don't. I'm very much team small and exclusive friendship group, not the kind of person who collects acquaintances and hangers-on. That's how I know the person messaging me is Lissa. It quite simply can't be anyone else, especially since Reggie and I broke up. Well, he dumped me because all I ever did was work, but I was having doubts about our relationship before that, so our separation was effectively mutual. Ooh la la, how is it? Are you having the best time? I'm sitting on my balcony chain smoking. With champagne? Warm Prosecco, grimace face. Close enough. Are the men gorgeous? Have you found a paramour yet? If she was with me, I'd have rolled my eyes and made a face like I was about to vomit. Lissa has this whole fantasy about meeting an attractive stranger and having a night of unbridled passion leading to an illicit affair. Unfortunately, this results in a monthly incident where she will end up doing the walk of shame, or knocking on my door to ask for help in the removal of said attractive stranger, who never ends up looking quite as alluring in the cold light of day. I decide to call her instead of trying to type quickly enough to get a word in edgeways. I can see she's already writing something else. Buongiorno, she says as she answers the phone. Italian, but close enough. I deadpan. Is it fabulous? Question, I say, and she waits for me to ask it. If you saw someone in an alley, dressed all in black on a warm afternoon, what would you think they were up to? Something nefarious, for sure. Right, I mean, it's weird. Maybe they're an assassin casing out the place, she suggests, always prone to over-dramatising a situation. It was my boss. Oh, she sounds disappointed. You had to ruin it. She was wearing leggings and a hoodie and a baseball cap. I tried to pique her interest again. And trainers? Well, yeah. She was probably going for a run. I reach for yet another cigarette and light it, taking a deep drag. Lissa is probably right. Freya is very private about her life outside of work, only sharing the barest minimum. All I know is she has an apartment slap bang in the middle of Covent Garden. Not that I'm jealous, and she doesn't seem to have a husband or kids. I guess she could be a runner. But then I see a black-clad figure enter the alleyway. She's coming back, I hiss into the phone, despite the fact that I'm too far away for Freya to hear me from the alleyway. Is she sweaty? I'm like 5 stories up, I say. Frustrated I can't see more closely. Your phone has a zoom function. She makes it sound like I'm a moron. She's generally the scatty one, the one who surprises me at her ability to navigate the real world, but sometimes she's a straight-up genius who doesn't even realise it. I open the camera and snap a series of photos. Then I enlarge her face. "Well?" Lissa asks, sounding quiet and tinny without the phone pressed against my ear. She is definitely not sweating. But then I peer over the edge of the balcony again. She squeezed herself behind one of the huge bins, stored where the alleyway opens into the rear courtyard of the hotel, and is staring up at one of the other rooms. I tuck myself down a bit, so she won't spot me if she turns in my direction. "She looks like she's up to something," I whisper into the phone. I fall silent as she climbs onto the roof of the bin, crouching low before springing up to grab the railing of the first-floor balcony above her. In an impressive display of upper body strength, she pulls herself up, then stands on top of the balustrade to grab the railing of the second-floor balcony. "Jesus," I whisper to Lissa. "What's going on?" She almost shouts into the phone. "My boss is—" I start, but I'm struggling to put what I'm seeing into words. "She's, like, climbing the balconies," I say eventually, but it doesn't do the spectacle justice. It's like she's Spider-Man, but some kind of modern feminist parkour take on Spider-Man. "Are you drunk?" Lissa asks in mock horror. "Of course I'm not drunk. I have a meeting in—" I check my watch. "Shit! My meeting is in like 45 minutes. I need to get ready." I go to hang up, then add, "Love you," before I press the button to end the call. I hear her say, "Love you," back before I cut her off. At 7:29, I'm standing in the atrium bar, dressed in the LK Bennett dress and Louboutin heels, my long brown hair in a classically chic chignon, makeup understated but flawless. There is literally nothing Freya can criticize about my appearance. At 7:39, I'm still standing in the atrium bar, and Freya hasn't turned up yet. I suppose it might take her a few minutes to get ready after scaling the outside of the hotel. I'm starting to wonder if that's really what I saw. I mean, it's just too ridiculous. I should have taken a video of it, even if just to prove to myself what actually happened. At 7:49, I am still standing in the atrium bar, and I'm debating calling Freya to ask where the hell she is. We cannot be late to this meeting. Am I meant to just go alone and then make up an excuse for why she's late? What do I say? "Oh, sorry Freya is a little late this evening. I just watched her climbing up the side of the hotel, using the lovely wrought iron balconies like a ladder, but I'm sure it was nothing and she'll be with us any moment." I'm being ridiculous. She's probably already there, probably came down to the bar at 7:26, found I wasn't already waiting and went straight to the restaurant to prove a point. At 7:54, I make the decision to go to the restaurant. It's only a few minutes' walk, and so I'm perfectly on time. Freya isn't there. Enough is enough. "Where are you?" I text her from my work phone as I'm shown to the table. I watch the screen as it confirms the message was delivered, and then wait for the 3 little ellipses to show she's replying. They don't come. I'm interrupted by the arrival of Nicolas and Julien, the Martin twins, who were semi-famous models in the early 2000s and who now run C'est Magnifique. I introduce myself as Sam's replacement. "No Freya?" Julien asks with a raised eyebrow. "She's just running a few minutes late." "Is she sick?" Nicolas's voice drips with faux concern. "She has not had an accident, no?" "Oh, no," I say with conviction. But what if she had? What if, when I was having a quick shower as I rushed to get ready so I wouldn't be late, she fell? What if she's lying in that alley, no one any the wiser about where she is? No. I'm being ridiculous, catastrophizing, spinning a story out of nothing but fear and paranoia, and some kind of morbid fascination with people dying in gruesome ways that has followed me since I was a child. "Shall we begin without her?" Nicolas asks, as he raises a finger to signal to the waiter that he wishes to order. "Of course," I reply with a smile, despite the fact my insides have turned to jelly and my brain to mush. I guess I'm going to have to negotiate this deal on my own. It's only a £10 million contract, nothing to worry about. Apologies. I get snarky when I'm nervous. I gulp the wine that appears at my elbow. I'm going to need it if I have any hope of making it through the next few hours. I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I do pretty well over dinner. The Martin twins and I hash out a slightly refined deal, one well within the parameters I know Freya would expect, over an extremely good Chateaubriand, and then we have crème brûlée paired with a glass of sweet sauterne for dessert. They insist on walking me back to the hotel, despite it being mere minutes away, before hailing down a passing taxi for themselves. "It has been a pleasure, Miss Brooks," Julien says, as he kisses my cheeks 3 times, in that bizarre way that is somehow both shockingly familiar and horrendously awkward at the same time. "Please pass our regards to Freya. Such a shame she couldn't join us. I wanted to congratulate her in person for that phenomenal presentation she gave in Boston last month." Despite the height of the Louboutins, there's a spring in my step as I head into the hotel, and I contemplate treating myself to a glass of champagne. And by treating myself, I obviously mean that I will charge it to the room and make Serendipity, that's the company I work for in case I haven't already said, pick up the tab. There's a hum in the air as I cross the reception area, a crackle of something I can't quite put my finger on. But then I walk into the atrium. Guess who's sitting at the bar? Okay, I know that wasn't exactly difficult. Of course, it's Freya. Just sitting there, as cool as ice, as if she didn't fail to turn up for the meeting and leave me to deal with everything by myself. My blood rises as I watch her casually sipping from the cocktail in front of her. I want to slap her, but I also want to tell her that I sealed the deal on my own. I want her to be proud of me. I'm such a fucking cliché. "You okay?" I ask her, as I slip onto the stool next to her. "Of course, Camille," she says. "Shouldn't I be?" She genuinely sounds like there is no reason for me to even ask that question. "You didn't show up for the meeting?" It's not an accusation. I sound like an abandoned dog left at the shelter by the person who was meant to give him a forever home. Ugh, what's wrong with me? "But I'm sure you got them to sign." "Yes, and I only had to give away another 10%. I wait for her to look impressed. "You gave away 10%. She doesn't seem impressed. She seems incredulous. "Only 10, yes." I can hear the uncertainty creeping into my voice. "Oh, Millicent." It's the use of my real name that sends a chill up the back of my neck. We'd already negotiated as low as would make commercial sense. Shit. Quite. She takes a long slug of her drink and motions to the bartender for another. Then she takes a deep breath, letting it out slowly as she turns to look at me head on. "I suppose it would be best if I tell the board I was the one who negotiated the deal. I'll tell them it was a deliberate strategy to bring the Martin brothers on board to encourage partnerships with some other brands." "But," I begin, but she cuts me off. "It's done, Millicent. Let's not talk of it again." Her voice is laced with disappointment. I want to tell her that it is all her fault anyway, that she should have been there, that I was only brought into this deal a few hours ago, that there is no way it should be considered my fault. But instead, I order a Chambord martini and we sit in silence as we drink. Half an hour ticks past, as I grow more and more angry that she fucked me over and then somehow made out like I was the one in the wrong. Screw this. "Freya," I start, "where were you this evening?" "I was with you, finalising a deal that I have the authority to negotiate, while you kept notes of the conversation. Notes that I'm expecting on my desk by close of play tomorrow. I suggest you spend the Eurostar journey home writing them up." And then she slides off her stool, scoops up her bag and walks away from me, leaving me sitting at the bar, my mouth hanging open in disbelief. That woman has some serious gall. I wait 5 minutes to ensure she won't possibly still be waiting for a lift, and then make my way back to my room. There is still enough, very, almost unbearably warm Prosecco left for another glass, and I take it out onto the little balcony for a nightcap and a final cigarette. The alleyway is bathed in blue light. When I lean over the balustrade a little, I can see a police car at the other end of the narrow space. 2 men in black, the word police emblazoned across the back of their jackets, are shining torches around the bins, searching for something. A German shepherd in a police harness is with them, nose to the ground, tail swishing slowly from side to side as he works. Then suddenly he turns and looks directly at me, his eyes glowing red. He lets out a low growl, and then returns to the job at Snout. What are they looking for? I slip back into my room and grab my phone. I didn't delete the photos I took of Freya earlier, and I pull them up. Zooming in on one, I notice something in Freya's hand. It looks like a pill bottle, one of those orange plastic ones with the white lid. In the next photo, she's slipping it into the pocket of her leggings, causing an unsightly bulge on one hip. I flick back to the first picture, zooming in further to see if I can read what's written on the label. But there is no label. What was in that bottle? And what are the police searching for in the middle of the night, in the exact same place I watched Freya climb up the side of the hotel? Chapter 3. Somehow I managed to sleep through the alarms I set on my phone, or, more accurately, I switched them off in my sleep, but thankfully I arranged for coffee to be delivered to the room at 7, and the room service waiter is extremely persistent in knocking on my door until I drag myself out of bed. "I hope your night wasn't too disturbed, Miss Brooks," he says in English, but with a trace of an accent, as he places the tray on a small table by the door. He turns and must see the confusion on my face. "With the ambulance and then the police outside?" "Ambulance? Oh, one of our guests." He trails off and clears his throat. Such a shame. Are they okay? But it's pretty obvious from the look on his face that, no, they are very much not okay. Who? But he shakes his head. "I can't say any more." And then he thrusts the room service slip towards me for my signature. As soon as the door closes behind him, I reach for my laptop and open Google. I type in the name of the hotel and hit the news icon. 3 hours ago, France 24 ran a story about the tragic death of an American businessman, and someone has helpfully already snipped the segment and posted it to YouTube. The newsreader is impossibly perky given this went out at 5 a.m, but her co-host is almost comatose. I'll try not to see it as an indictment of just how much harder women have to work to be considered equal to their male counterparts. At 9 o'clock yesterday evening, a body was discovered in a suite at the Marriott Champs-Élysées. The man, who we can now confirm as Cody Gelber, CEO of Interbank LLC and a regular feature of society in both New York and Paris, is believed to have been alone in his room at the time of his death. Early reports indicate the drug fentanyl may have been involved. Amid suggestions this was suicide. Fentanyl? I call Lissa, half expecting her not to answer, but pleasantly surprised when she does. "It's the middle of the night," she tells me. I go to make a snarky comment, but to be fair, it is only 6 a.m. in London. Question: how easy is fentanyl to get hold of? Do we need to have a chat about something?" Her voice is hard, and I hear a slap in the background, followed by the rustling of bedsheets as she sits up. "You do not, ever, mess with that shit." "Geez, Lissa, I'm not trying to score, for fuck's sake. What the hell?" "So why are you asking?" Well, someone died in the hotel last night. The news is saying it was a fentanyl overdose." "Thought you were staying somewhere swish, not some crack house. That said, it's actually pretty easy to get hold of if you have money and contacts." There's a giggle in the background, and then that sound of a slap again. "Stop it, I hear her whisper under her breath. Are you? There's another giggle, slightly louder this time. Lissa, did you answer the phone while you're having sex? Not like sex, she says, innocent as pie. Just a little bit of fun. You are a disgrace, I tell her, but my tone is light, imbued with a touch of laughter. This isn't the first time she's answered the phone while she has company, just another thing I've got used to over the years. I spend another half hour Googling Cody Gelber, painting a picture of a man well known as a purveyor of capitalist hedonism, prone to excessive spending, excessive drinking, and excessive partying with a veritable harem of beautiful women. Wealthy, generous, and not that unattractive, especially if you like your men with the appearance of well-weathered leather. He was the kind of man who was invited to all of the most prestigious events. But under that artificially whitened smile is a hint of something else, something wrong, something wicked. I can sense it in his eyes, in the way the photos show him resting his hand on the base of whichever woman he is entertaining's spine. This man is a predator. Now, I know mental health is a silent killer, that you cannot possibly look at someone and have any idea of the demons they battle. Trust me when I say I have more experience of this than anyone should have. I was only 6 when my father succumbed to his darkness. But Cody Gelber doesn't seem like the kind of man who would barricade himself in his hotel suite and take a huge dose of fentanyl. If he'd been found with a bevy of women, dead from an accidental overdose of MDMA or some other chemsex drug, that would have tracked. But this whole situation doesn't seem to make sense. On the drive to Gare du Nord, Freya barely speaks to me, her eyes hidden behind a pair of grossly oversized sunglasses like an ice-blonde Audrey Hepburn. But as soon as we're seated on the Eurostar, she takes them off, folding them carefully and placing them next to her MacBook. Did you write up those notes from the meeting? She asks, with a hint of exasperation, as if she's preempting me saying I haven't. Of course I haven't. It's 9 a.m. I'm not a stickler about these things by any stretch, but my contract does actually say my hours are 9 to 5:30, and the meeting was last night, for fuck's sake. But I swallow my irritation. I was going to use the train journey, which was actually her suggestion in the bar last night. Right, well, I suggest you get cracking then. She pauses for a few moments. If it was anyone else, I'd assume they were silently debating if they should say something more, but given this is Freya, it's far more likely the pause is purely for dramatic effect. I'm doing you a favour here, Camille. You understand what the board's position would be if they knew you'd given away such a huge margin, don't you? I swallow. I would be fired. Summarily, no chance to tell my side of the story. And then everything I've been working toward for so many years would be lost, disappearing in a puff of iniquitous smoke. Thank you, Freya, I say, and open my laptop to write the absolute bullshit she wants me to spread. I'm about halfway through this farce when my phone beeps with a message. I glance up at Freya, but she has headphones in, eyes half closed and her head resting against the back of the seat. I wonder for a moment what she's listening to, but at least she has no idea I'm receiving random messages from Lissa. The WhatsApp message isn't from Lissa. I don't recognise the number, the profile picture a plain black circle. I debate deleting it. It's probably spam, or something dodgy. To be fair, the most likely scenario is it's some guy's dick, but curiosity gets the better of me. An image opens on my screen. A plain blank sheet of paper, with a sentence written on it, in thick black block capital lettering. Reuben Chambers, and now Cody Gelber. Connect the dots. What the hell? I open a browser and type Reuben Chambers into Google. In November last year, Reuben Chambers was found dead in his Milan apartment, overlooking the Parco Alessandrina Ravizza. He was a professor of economics at Bocconi University, loved by his students and fellow faculty members, who described him as the best in the business and who expressed their distress in the days following his death. I checked the message again, or at least I tried to. It has disappeared, vanished into the ether. I remember Lissa showing me how to send self-destructing picture messages on WhatsApp. It's actually super easy. You just tap the little icon with a 1 in it. I'm sure it said, connect the dots, suggesting there is something linking this Reuben Chambers and Cody Gelber. But Reuben's death was absolutely a murder. He'd been found on his knees, a single bullet through his brain. An execution, the press had called it. I scrolled through a few more articles, each of them confirming the details. The gun was most likely a Beretta 92 FS, the standard issue pistol for the Italian military. It was unclear if it had been fitted with a silencer, but, given the lack of reports from his neighbours, it was considered highly likely. The gunman left no prints, no DNA, no clue as to their identity. They were never found. Although the file remains open, the working hypothesis is that it was a professional job. No leads, the trail cold. But if it was a professional job, then why was Reuben a target? Everything I read about the case suggests he was simply a mild-mannered and well-respected professor who devoted his life to teaching economics. I mean, sure, it might not be the world's most exciting job, but it shouldn't be the kind of career that would get you killed. Perhaps it was something in his private life, something that connected him to Cody. Did they move in the same circles? I sigh and crack my knuckles. Yes, a terrible habit, but it helps me think. What has any of this got to do with me? I click on yet another article, this one from the day the story first broke. The 24th of November, 2022. Something snags in my brain. I remember that date. I search my work emails, and there it is. On 24th of November last year, Freya and Sam were in Milan for the Making Cosmetics trade show. Freya was the keynote speaker, and I'd been helping ensure all went to plan from London, making sure everything was perfect with her outfit and the transport, and checking the venue had the right version of the slides for her presentation. The date should be seared onto my memory, as it was an absolute shit show. The car failed to turn up to take Freya and Sam to the Milano Convention Centre, apparently known as MICO, which made the whole thing more infuriating as I didn't understand all the abbreviations. And then the taxi they flagged down took them on a convoluted route that ended up with them stuck in a huge traffic jam. And then the venue didn't have any oat milk for Freya's latte, and she lost her shit at the poor barista who was trying to help her. It had got worse as the day progressed, and afternoon turned to evening. The restaurant couldn't find their reservation, and I had to try and find an alternative at stupidly short notice, which was almost impossible as the city was so busy. I was meant to meet Reggie's parents that night. He had had this whole thing planned with dinner and drinks at Clos Maggiore. Yep, only one of the fanciest places in London. But I was 2 hours late, and they'd already finished eating when I arrived. "It's fine," he'd said. But the pout told me it wasn't. "I'm sorry," I told him. "You know what Freya's like. It isn't worth it, you know." But that was where he was wrong. Of course it's worth it. I will put up with anything, do anything, go anywhere for this job. I will bitch and moan and scream in frustration, yes, but I'll do it. Nothing matters, except clawing my way up the hierarchy at Serendipity and making it to the Los Angeles headquarters. I banish Reggie from my thoughts and sit back in my seat as the importance of the date sinks in. On 24th of November 2022, Freya was in Milan on the same day a man was murdered. On the 3rd of May 2023, Freya was in Paris on the same day a man apparently committed suicide. I raise my eyes and watch her over the rim of my laptop. Surely it's nothing more than a coincidence. Chapter 4. Freya opens one eye and stares at me. I quickly avert my gaze. Shit. Was there something you wanted to say? She asks, a gentle sigh tinging her voice, as if she's utterly exasperated by me, but trying not to show it. No, of course not, I stammer, cursing myself for being such a blithering idiot. Do I have something on my face? She arches a single eyebrow in the way I have never been able to. No, Have you finished writing the minutes of the meeting? She puts out a hand and makes a flapping motion. I've been so busy Googling Reuben I haven't made any more progress. Almost, I say, praying she doesn't ask to see what I've done. She huffs and shakes her head, just slightly. Just enough for the sense of her disappointment to course through me and turn my cheeks pink. Please don't make me regret allowing you to take on some of Sam's responsibilities, she says, her words slow and careful. I won't. I've got this. But I don't say it out loud. I need this job. I don't say that out loud either. Whatever it takes. Just get it done. Her tone is bored, dismissive. I turn my attention back to my laptop and the meeting notes. In this moment, I hate her, loathe the way she treats me, despise the tone she uses when she talks to me. I sneak a look at her perfect white blonde hair and 1,000-pound suit, and demeanour of an absolute fucking grandeur. I hate her, and I admire her, and there are times when I want to be exactly like her, and then I hate myself even more than I could ever hate her. Cody Gelber keeps nagging at me. Who was this man, really? And why did he choose to kill himself in a hotel room? That isn't normal, surely. How many people commit suicide in a place they know some poor chambermaid will find them? Actually, that probably isn't fair. I doubt the thought of who will find your body is exactly a priority when you're staring down the barrel of your own existence. Although I meant to be finishing the made-up minutes of the meeting, I can't help myself from bringing up Google. Cody Gelber had everything going for him. Or at least, that was the way it seemed, which makes me wonder if it really was suicide. You know I can tell you're not working on those minutes. Her sharp tone cuts through me, and I instinctively click out of Google. I stare at Freya over the top of my screen. Is she tracking my laptop? Looking at everything I've been looking at? Can she see what I'm searching? My heart pounds in my chest, and I can feel a cool film of sweat building on my lower back. Or is she just seeing the guilt stamped all over my face? Are you going to share? She asks, clipping the words. Whatever it is must be very interesting if it's dragging you away from the work I've expressly requested. I feel like a chastised schoolchild, asked to read the note I've been passing between my friends. Not that I was that kind of naughty in school, or that popular. Sorry, it's a bad analogy. But you probably were popular enough to have secret notes in class, so let's just say it was like that and move on. Just please do the work you're paid to do, Freya says, bored with the conversation already. It's also a complete lie because, exactly as I expected, I've not been offered a new title or the commensurate pay rise associated with the increased workload I'm taking on. Lissa is going to go apeshit when I tell her. When we get back to the office, I'm thrown into meeting after meeting, taking so many notes my hand begins to cramp and curl into a claw. I have no time to continue my internet stalking of Cody Gelber or Reuben Chambers, even as my brain sits and stews on the puzzle. By the time 6 p.m. comes round, I'm exhausted, ready to get home, order some kind of greasy takeaway and sink a bottle of wine. I change into my trainers, feet screaming in relief as I release them from the stupid heels I've had them crammed into all day. When did someone decide that women should wear high heels? And when did someone decide they were the most appropriate choice for corporate women? I bet it was a man. Although it could have been a woman who hates other women. It's not like the business world isn't littered with them. The whole, I had to suffer to get where I am, so you must suffer too thing really gets to me. All that girl power my generation was promised, and it all turned out to be a fucking lie. A fallacy, as other women smashed the glass ceiling and immediately boarded it up again to ensure no one could follow. Lissa and I live in Clapham, just off the common, in a little flat we can barely afford, and only because the landlord gave us a huge discount when we offered to do all the home improvements it needed in exchange for reducing the rent. It was a total mess, and we spent almost 3 years working every weekend to make it into a home. And now it's perfect, big enough for the two of us and not too far from the station. The tube is rammed, as usual. I turn my head to avoid my nose ending up in some man's armpit as the crowds push onto the train and force us into even closer proximity. There's a guy to my right who reaches around me to grab hold of the handrail, his hand grazing my bum for a moment. I whip my head round to stare at him, but he's looking away, seemingly oblivious to his infraction. But no, there it is. His hand is no longer on the rail. I try to move forward out of the way, but there's nowhere for me to go. The weight of it increases, fingers twitching slightly as he grows in confidence. I turn suddenly, ignoring the fact that I knock another passenger off balance. The hand clamps hard onto my buttock and squeezes forcefully. Do you know what? I'm done with this shit today. Get your hand off me, right now, I demand, raising my voice over the hubbub of the carriage. He turns to face me. Sorry, love, what was that? He smirks, and I want to punch him. I raise my voice even higher. Get your fucking hand off me! Which hand? He says, with faux innocence as he squeezes again, this time hard enough I think he might leave a bruise. The tube comes to a stop, and he squeezes again before pushing his way through the crowds to exit the carriage, leaving me standing there fuming. The absolute audacity of him. I stand with my mouth half open as another wave of people pushes on board. No one else bats an eyelid at the fact that I just got groped in public in the middle of rush hour. Did you see him? I ask the woman next to me. Who? She replies, with an almost imperceptible shrug. That guy, he was standing here before. Sorry. She shrugs more obviously this time. I'm about to say something else, because how is it possible that some guy can grope me on the tube and walk away as if he did nothing, when I spot her? Sam. As in, the Sam who used to do my job. The Sam who apparently got fired for reasons I have no idea about. Just standing in the next carriage, dressed in baggy jeans and the same vintage TLC t-shirt Lissa has been coveting for years, a pair of chunky headphones around her neck. I stare at her, but she's not looking at me. I need to talk to her. Ask her what the hell happened. Make sure she's okay. Actually, that last bit is a tiny lie. She hated the job and complained constantly, so no doubt she's absolutely fine about the situation. No, I need to know what she did to get herself fired, so I can make sure I don't repeat her mistakes. At the next station, I push my way off the train and hop into her carriage. But she's not there. As the train moves away again, I see her walking down the platform of Stockwell Station, head down, not looking at me. Does she live round here? Perhaps I can find her address in the serendipity files and go visit her, ask the questions I need to ask. As soon as I'm off the tube, my phone beeps with a stream of messages. It's Lissa. Drinks, meet me in B at 1, now, or at least as soon as your tube gets in. Love you. I groan a little as I read the messages. I just want to go home and have a shower and put on my pyjamas. It will do you good. Lissa messages. I sigh. She's probably right. Alcohol and company versus takeaway and lonely sadness. Stop debating and start walking to B at 1. I laugh a little. Out loud, so a few people turn to look at me like I'm a lunatic, which is nice, and start walking to meet her. I'm assuming you're paying for the drinks, little Miss Moneybags? Lissa says with a grin, as she picks up the cocktail menu and starts flicking through it. I start, my face twisting into a grimace. Oh, hell no. She puts the menu back down and stares straight at me. Do not tell me you didn't secure a pay rise for this new job. Well, it's just... I peter out. Did you even try to negotiate? Her stare hardens. But I can't lie to her about this. For fuck's sake, Millie! She picks up the cocktail menu, purely so she can throw it down again. What the fuck? She picks it up a second time and slams it down even more forcefully. You are letting her walk all over you. It's complicated, I say, but my voice sounds thin in my ears. I'm not even convincing myself at this point, and I feel my shame and self-loathing begin to crystallize. Complicated? Jesus Christ! How the actual fuck is it complicated to ask for more money to take on more work? It's like... She waves her hand angrily as she gropes for the word. It's like you're a fucking masochist. Like you enjoy that bitch walking over you. It's not like that. I need this job, remember? We need this job. She looks a little contrite at that last bit. And yes, I continue, she might be taking the piss a little bit. Lissa snorts loudly. A bit? Okay, a lot. But it's about the long game. You know that as well as I do. Do you really think this will help you get to LA? Lissa drops her voice slightly, her anger and disappointment in me dissipating and being replaced with hope. I nod. This new position gets me in front of people, gets me seen, noticed. I raise my eyebrows. All that matters is that I eventually get offered a role at the Serendipity headquarters in Los Angeles. I think that's why there's a part of me, probably too big a part if we're honest, that wants to be like Freya. Women like her, ruthless egotists with zero compassion, get the promotions. Playing nice doesn't work in the corporate world, we all know that. Promise you're not just being shafted. I nod. Promise she's not going to use you and then fire you, and you'll end up even further away than ever before. Lissa sounds like a concerned parent. Or at least, how I would imagine a concerned parent to sound. How they sound in the movies being my only basis to work from. I promise. I just need to ride it out, not rock the boat. This time, it's Lissa's turn to nod. So much of our communications remain unspoken, as if we're twins instead of best friends. I guess that's what comes from living with someone for so long. Right then, Lissa says definitively, signalling an end to this train of conversation. I guess I will pay for the drinks, and then you can tell me all about your boss scaling up the side of the building. It was nothing, I tell her quickly. I don't want her to worry. That's my role in our relationship. By which you mean it was absolutely something, but you think I'll only disapprove even more about this current job situation. She says it with a hint of dry humour as she raises a hand to motion to the bartender.